have any memorable moments from during the writing or editing process? Because it has been a long time now.
Yeah.
Like over a year, I think.
I think I did a 12,000 word day once.
Oh
And
my
that was like
God.
more than I've ever written in a day. Or no, it was like 20,000, I think. It was some crazy amount where I just did like an all-nighter because like I was just feeling very inspired, and like the past couple of days I had like a little bit of a block, so it just all came all at once. Morning till like very early morning next day. It was crazy. I do not recommend, but it was a little fun.
Nice. Gotta just power out while you have the motivation to.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, when it comes to like the editing process, because my memory of the earliest draft that you submitted is very hazy at this point.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say are the biggest changes that took place?
I'd say probably Aaron becoming more of like a more involved character in the overall like plot. Like he was just, I kind of created him by accident in the first draft, so we didn't really feel like that
Yeah.
important. But then I was like, oh wait, this could actually be cool or whatever. And I think aside from that, another really big change was I remember in the very first draft, I think Eddie and Ren had like this like kind of friends to lovers thing. Like they actually like kind of liked each other at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And then, at the beginning of where it is now, they're just like they have all this hate, and it's really huge difference to like go back and read the first draft because they like each other so much.
It's funny you bring those ones up because those were two of my questions that I wanted to ask you about. Like, because that was one thing that stood out to me. I definitely noticed like Aaron was suddenly, I was reading like one of your updated versions. I'm like, wait a minute, who's this character?
Yeah.
Like this huge character now. But I absolutely love how Aaron turned out. Like I feel like he's kind of a reader's favorite at this point. Like I've seen a lot of reviews mentioning Aaron.
So many DMs saying like if you hurt him, watch out. Like
Aaron is precious.
Yeah, he's precious.
I got kind of like a normal person vibe from Aaron that was kind of not, because everyone else is in this society, right? And it feels so futuristic and different from what we're used to. And then Aaron comes there and he's just like one of us. It feels.
Yeah.
So the way he speaks, and we understand it, but Eddie and Ren don't. It's just very interesting. Like that was such a cool thing to throw in there.
Yeah, it's definitely very fun to write like the difference between how he talks versus Eddie and Ren, because like he has access to so much of the past, which is like our today. So I think maybe he feels like more of a relatable character because of that, like he has access to all these like yesterday books and stuff that Eddie and Ren haven't really had as much exposure to. So it's just it's fun.
That was done so well. Like I wasn't expecting those humorous bits there.
He's so enjoyable for me to write. Like there's something about his character. It's just it's so fun. I started writing draft 2, I think, is when I really started to be like, oh wait, his character is really intriguing to me, and his backstory. Like I'm excited to explore that further too in the second book.
And then I feel like another character that kind of moved up the ranks a bit is Eddie's younger brother.
Yeah, Milo.
Oh my God, I love him.
He's so fun. He's definitely one of my, I know I'm not supposed to have favorites or whatever, but he's definitely like up there for me. Oh, another big change was that Eddie had like a ton of siblings because I wanted it to be so tragic, and then I was just like, wait, people realistically wouldn't have like so many children in a society like this. And so then Milo just became like all of them squished into one. It just became a lot more like developed, I guess, as the draft went on.
I think it made it more tragic in my opinion. Like
it's Milo.
He's just so likable and so like innocent in what's going on, and he gets pulled into everything. Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah. Justice for Milo.
Also, the scenes between Milo and Ren were unexpected. Like I like that you explored that dynamic. It didn't even cross my mind until it was happening. I was like, wow, this is weird. But I love that.
Yeah, that was definitely another really fun thing to write, like the interactions between them, because like when you think about it, given like Eddie's past and Ren's past and like how they're like their families used to be so close. Like Milo was a part of that too, which I didn't really think about until later drafts. So I was like, oh, he was probably around a lot. Like, so it's just the Milo and Ren scenes were pretty fun.
Like in terms of Eddie and Ren, I'm very curious. Oh, you said you don't pick favorites, but who did you enjoy or like writing more from the point of view?
I think Ren is probably more enjoyable for me to write just because he's so like his dynamic is really interesting to me. Like he's like really likable at some moments and then sometimes he goes a little like so it's very like difficult, but that kind of makes it more interesting, I guess. But at the same time, Eddie's perspective is like a lot easier for me to write because I feel like her style of speaking is just a lot more casual, a lot more like just thinking whatever she wants to think. So it's just it comes a lot easier, I guess. So I don't know. There's parts I like about both of them.
Yeah, why did you decide to change their dynamic? Because they were originally kind of like on okay terms, and then now it's kind of a much more complicated path.
Yeah. I think I decided to change it just because I don't know. Things felt a little too easy at the beginning of like the first draft of book 1 before I even developed the system. This is the idea I had when I was like 12. What was like so interesting to me was the dynamic between a runner and a chaser and like this roller coaster of like kind of liking them, hating them, going back to kind of liking them. Like, is there romance? Like, the whole roller coaster kind of thing was what like I was really drawn to. So I kind of wanted to add a little more to that. And I think it kind of, also shows a lot of like just how much they love Margot because they don't like each other, but they're willing to work together to save her. It was a lot more interesting for me to give them that rockier start.
I love kind of the middle of the book when things just go haywire.
Yeah.
Because I feel like at that point things are starting to get comfortable and things are like developing and everything's kind of going okay. And then it's just like a giant bomb that just blows up. I just like it kind of comes out of nowhere in a way, even though you're somewhat expecting it, like it's going to happen. But it just really sneaks up.
Like I tried really hard at the beginning to establish kind of like this period of like peace. Like, yeah, things are still like spooky or whatever. And like the prologue, that something crazy is going to happen. So then throughout that kind of first half, I wanted to create this feeling of like anxiety, like, oh, something bad is going to happen. I just don't know when. And right when you start to get comfortable, the contrast between the like peaceful moments at the beginning and then like everything that happens. I'm trying not to spoil stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the peaceful moments were done really well and just establishing the characters. And I love the like banter between them, it's just it's just very fun, especially like that's one of the things that I love so much about the book is just how lighthearted it is at times and then how absolutely brutal and dark it goes. Just the way it bounces between that is just so much fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun to write.
What do you think was the most fun to write? Like, was it those lighthearted moments or kind of the grittier stuff?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I really did enjoy writing like the lighthearted moments. Like definitely the dialogue for me between the characters, like during the more like peaceful moments, were really fun. Eddie and Ren being so attitudinal towards each other, and then of course Eddie and Aaron, like that was probably one of my favorite parts to write about the whole book, and exploring like sibling dynamics and stuff too. But at the same time, I had a lot of fun writing the really like creepy Carmody scenes.
Oh my god,
that was really fun for me. That's probably a bad sign, but his character is another like really interesting thing for me.
I need to know more.
Like unlikable.
But before talking about Duke, I wanted to ask, because I don't even know the answer to this. Do you have an end game ship? Like, is it already solidified?
I do.
You do.
But I'm just kind of like thinking about how to approach it.
And you're 100%?
I think so. No. I think so. I'm not sure like how. I have an end game ship, but I'm just not sure how it's gonna play out. If that makes sense.
I'm nervous.
I'm trying like not to spoil anything, but I just kind of want to like. I'm thinking about doing some evil author moves. So
Oh no.
it's like I don't know, like
pulling
maybe.
several.
I think I kind of had this solidified from the beginning of like both Ren and Aaron. I think I kind of knew which direction it was gonna go, and I wanted to, explore like the different kinds of relationships that Eddie would have with these people, and the trauma bond that she has with him, and then the like really solid friendship foundation she has with Aaron. Like those things, like, they're kind of like on opposite scales or whatever, but it does cause a lot of like I could see it causing a lot of conflict, and I'm just getting.
Yeah, we already got some kind of interesting scenes with like Ren and Aaron together.
Oh yeah,
those were so much fun.
My brother hasn't even read the book yet, but he has me like reread that one scene where they're like
really
fighting over like who gets to like look out for Eddie. That one part, like they're arguing over who gets to sleep on the floor, and then they end up sleeping next to each other. Like I'm trying not to give it too much away about that one part, but he hasn't even read it yet, and that's like his favorite scene because I've told him about like all this stuff. He just thinks it's really funny.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
There's so many parts. It's like you would be a monster to just not smile during some of these scenes. Like it's so great. But yeah, I feel like I shouldn't pry further. I don't want to spoil for myself either. But I'm very curious, like which way you're planning to go with that.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of have a hunch though. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably I don't want to give stuff away, but I think I do have a plan.
So yeah, I wanted to talk to you about Duke because I don't know what is with him, but he just feels so normal, but also so messed up.
I think I was trying to do that. Like I wanted him to seem like just, this kind of like normal kid or whatever, like, and like establishing at the beginning him interacting with them at school. He's just this like annoying dude, like he's not important or whatever. And then you progressively start to see, oh, wait a minute, here's what happens when, like he's like, I think to me, he kind of represents like all the flaws in the system, but like wrapped into like one little character. Like, I don't know. It's just, it was definitely very challenging to make him still seem relatable and really horrible at the same time.
I gotta admit, like as horrible as he is, like I kind of feel for him in some ways.
Yeah. The creepiest thing about this whole society is like how much like cruelty is like normalized and like how normal it feels to the people who are living here. So I kind of wanted to like convey that in a character, like and yeah, it was kind of hard at times to kind of like get into his head and to make him seem relatable. I think making him seem relatable was probably the most challenging part of his character for me to write, because it's like it's easy to make someone a villain, but like it's hard to give them a motivation that feels like it makes sense and that the reader can also kind of relate to.
Oh yeah, the dynamics between Duke and Ren. That was so to me, that stuff was really interesting to read, though. Was that fun for you to write, or was that just stressful?
It was a bit of both. It was really like stressful for the parts where like Ren has to kind of like play along and like be on Duke's side and like pretend to be his buddy. Like that was kind of like hard to write, because at times like Duke is just so like like you just like don't want to be around him. But it was pretty fun to explore at the same time. Just like how Ren was able to kind of I'm trying to like say it without spoiling things, but that like mindset switch was just, I think it made it a lot easier to write those scenes, because at the beginning, like before everything happened, Ren was very like clear about like how much he like hated Carmody, how disgusting he thought he was. But then after certain things happened and there was that switch, he kind of just, I feel like it kind of faded into the background a bit. Like, like Carmody started to become more normal to Ren. in a way.
It does seem pretty fun, but also the prolonged times when Ren and Duke are working together, I feel like that would take an emotional toll on an author. Like, because I just imagine like you working on these, you kind of have to spend hours and hours with Duke yourself.
Yeah.
Like you had to spend more time with Duke than anyone reading this book.
Yep. So much time with him.
When I think back on when I read the first draft forever ago, one of the things that stood out to me a lot was like the training when Ren starts training. And this is a spoiler moment that may or may not go in super public, but like when Duke is just there.
Yeah.
That was like, it blew my mind.
That was one of my favorite reveals. Like, it was really fun to write, like how surprised Ren was and horrified, and that kind of stuff is just so fun.
And did you know that from the start, that plan, or did that just come?
It just happened. Really? Like pretty much everything up until the pick happens was just me winging it when I was like writing my first draft. So I didn't actually like start planning the rest of the book until after the pick, and then that's when I had like my my Scrivener cards, and I was like, oh, then this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, and it all came together kind of after that midway point. But everything up until then was just kind of like me like figuring things out and like getting a feel for the story. So I think I was a little surprised when I decided to have Carmody show up, but actually Carmody was a completely different character before I even wrote the book. I forgot about this.
Really?
I always knew Ren was gonna have some chaser partner, and he was actually a girl before.
Really?
And I was gonna have like, a love triangle with Ren and this like chaser girl.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then it worked into Duke.
Was there a reason why you ended up changing it to Duke, or was it kind of like he was already just an established character, so you just assigned him that role?
I wanted to focus more on like Ren and his like kind of like obsession with Eddie a little bit. Like I wanted to dive into that and like why he like, you know, chooses to, you know, just obsess over her in like all these different ways and like fixate on her. And I thought like if there was you know, like a potential like other romantic interest, it would just kind of make things a little muddier. So
That's
so
fair.
It just morphed into what he is now. But
that's fair. I feel like Ren goes through so many changes, like mental changes during that period of time. That's true. It seems really tough to think that he would be like crushing on someone, some random person. Oh man. I go to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I remember that didn't even make it into the first draft or anything. I just had all these like sticky notes of like the basic bones of like what it was, and Duke Carmody was a girl.
Wow, that's an interesting concept though. I love the vibe of like the nature thing, because it's I feel like going into a book like this you'd expect it to be super futuristic, but there's also like the element of nature as well. And we do get the futuristic stuff, especially with the whole chaser technology and Ren's training. But it's just cool to see the contrast and how you still included like all of the nature stuff too. It's not like super cyberpunk or whatever.
That was like one of another like main thing that I really knew I wanted to include before I like actually started writing. And like, because, you know, I feel like you don't really see that in a lot of dystopian books. They're just so focused on how it is in the future, you know? And then I feel like a lot of lone players like, hey, let's go back a little to like some of the things we already knew. And I just, it's really fun to write that contrast, you know, and like Eddie's interest in nature and Ren's interest in it too. And then how it kind of switches, and it's it was really fun.
And I love how like, Milo has this interest in the past that is kind of our present. It's just such a cool dynamic. It's like I've never thought about feeling nostalgic about this time at some point in the future, but that's kind of what it is, without giving too much away. what are some of your plans, or what can readers expect in the next book?
I wrote the first draft of book 2 very quickly after writing the very first draft of book 1. So since so much has changed since the first draft of book 1, a lot is changing in book 2 from like that first draft that we sent out to beta readers. And I think we're going to get a lot more of the, you know, like the rebels at the cut, and, you know, more of Milo.
Yay.
And, you know, just I'm trying not to give too much away, but also, you know, we're going to get more of Aaron. Okay, I think this is something that I can like say without it really being a spoiler, but one major perspective in book 2 is actually an agent from the Chaser Corps, and I just really wanted to. Oh, my brother just brought me juice.
I have to make room in the fridge.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we get to explore, you know, the perspective of an agent, which is pretty much like the worst of the worst, like the highest level chaser. They're these, you know, presidency dogs or whatever. And, you know, I just really want to explore like how, again, like they're still human. They're still people on the inside, and like figure out like what's motivating them. So that's another thing to expect from book 2. And then just kind of how the rebellion is like crumbling a little. The contrast between like the natural world and the futuristic world, I think that's going to get a lot stronger in book 2, because, you know, in certain perspectives you see even more of the chaser world and more of like the agency. That's the big thing that book 2 is going to explore, is like some of the good parts of the like the system.
Oh no.
And the bad parts of the
rebellion. No. we were just getting a grip on the good and bad of the society. You're gonna flip it on us. Oh no. I'm scared.